and welcome back to the Renegade Ventures Podcast. Today we have a really interesting conversation in store to talk about intuitive communication and how you step up as a leader. We're really excited about our guest, but before we get started, I want to check in with Maggie about her business. And also, if you're watching us online, you might be able to see the most adorable puppy on
so cute.
The show today with us.
Hi.
What is this pup's name?
Her name is Nina, and she's actually full grown.
Oh my goodness. She looks like a little teddy bear.
She's a little teddy bear. When she gets home from the groomer, she is like a little snack. I just love hanging out with her. So I'm becoming that weird old lady that takes a small dog around with her.
Oh my goodness, yes. But at least it is a really cute small dog.
It's really cute. It's
yeah.
really cute.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's great to be here. Been a minute.
I know.
We haven't really connected recently. So tell me what's new at Resonate.
Well, our big exciting news this week, and when this comes out, it'll be out for a little while, I'm sure. But our big exciting news is that we have been working on a podcast for Nathan Fillion and Alan Tudyk, who, if you've seen Castle or The Rookie, those are both star Nathan Fillion, and everyone knows Alan Tudyk and doesn't know it because he is the voice of like everything, but you also would recognize his face. So if you don't know who I'm talking about, go look him up. But they have launched a podcast this week called Once We Were Spacemen. And it's sort of like this tribute to a TV show they were on 20 years ago called Firefly. And my husband absolutely adores the TV show Firefly. So when we found out we were going to get to work on this, it was like,
geeked.
Yes, his life was complete. He literally used the words, "I can die happy." And I was like, okay, take it down a notch. You still have wife and children.
Yeah, wife and kids, whatever, but Firefly.
We even have the board game. And you know what is the best for me as a extremely competitive, non-geek person who grew up, not playing board games of this nature, is when I first started playing the board game, I had to watch a TV show to have the concept of how it worked. And then I absolutely murdered everyone else who was in on this. And it is glorious.
It's your superpower.
Strategy board games. Okay, but anyways, what's been new with you?
Well, that's awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you.
How exciting. And you continue to make Brad's dreams come true.
I know.
Dream maker.
Absolutely.
Dream maker.
Absolutely. And if you haven't, go make sure you check out the podcast, give it a like and a review. And
definitely.
It's a super fun, goofy show for anyone into anything Comic-Con. You don't have to have watched Firefly necessarily, but it would help. Yeah.
I'll get into it. That's awesome. I'll check it out. Awesome.
Yeah. And so now tell us what's going on with you. I mean, you've had a big couple of months. We haven't had that much time to connect.
Yeah, I've had some speaking engagements for my new business, and it's been amazing. I got to go to West Palm Beach and speak to Exit Factor, and you remember interviewing
Jessica was a guest here.
She was a guest on the pod. She's brilliant. She's wonderful. She's easygoing, and yet somehow one of the most focused and driven people I know. So I got to speak to her group of franchisees for their annual conference.
Oh, cool.
And spoke about my experience as a franchisee and how to really tap into sort of what the power of a franchise, how you are your own captain of your own ship, but you're also part of something bigger. And they have such a big opportunity with Exit Factor. It's such a cool franchise. I honestly wish I could go back in time and be looking at that franchise. I love Sinorama, but how cool would it be to be in that little startup franchise? So that was just a thrill. It was really fun. And to be among other franchisees and in that space was really fun. And then I did speaking at the Women in Tech Conference. You were there as well,
yes,
and you spoke.
I did, yes.
So that was really fun. I really got a chance to try out some of my content that I'm building. I still feel like such a little baby in the woods wandering around trying to figure out who I really am, like who I want to be when I grow up. And so that was a really fun room to be in with all those women. And so, yeah, and then I'm really in a sprint to finish my book. I've written a book about meditations on courage, but it's kind of like a fun read. And the idea is you get a meditation every week, kind of like steep yourself in. So I can't wait to let you read it. I'll give you an early copy so you can kind of give me your feedback on it. But I haven't finished the title, but I'm kind of playing around with it. So I'm really having fun.
I need some meditation right now. So yes.
Meditate on your courage. It's all within you. You just have to figure out how to unlock it. So yeah, things are good. I'm feeling busy, and it feels great to be learning and diving into something new.
Yeah. And it's cool because Maggie's at the beginning of your like speaking business journey and creating this new business. And today's guest has been a professional speaker for a while and has developed that business out. And we're really going to dive into her subject matter expertise. But as always on the Renegade podcast, we want to talk about people's businesses and expose many different types of businesses. So it is my pleasure to welcome Tina B to the show.
Tina B.
Yeah.
Hey. I'm excited to be here. Thank you, Ellie and Maggie.
Thank you for coming on. I want to first let everyone kind of know who you are, what you do, and what you're about. So we like to start with you giving kind of a synopsis of your story and what brought you to being a intuitive communications speaker, consultant, and coach.
Yeah, I'm Tina B, and I was that kid that grew up on an Iowa farm that just absolutely loved the Muppets. And everything became about writing scripts, stories, and creating beautiful little shows and roping my younger brother and sister into this, ranging from dinner theater experiences for my parents' annual anniversary to evolving into high school, college, speech, theater experiences, and even became the first University in Northern Iowa Disney cast member. I got to coordinate the day and night parades. And so everything I do based on my Disney Institute training with communication and business comes from how do I serve my guests or clients with that flair, that magic, that beauty, so that they go into the world with magical, magnetic communication and experiences. And so I not only have the background of training in human resources for Omaha Steaks, I also was a high school speech, English, and theater teacher, got my advanced degrees, and did all things communication studies, starting at Creighton University for 10 years as a communication professor, and then worked in nonprofit and bringing storytelling to rural Iowa folks and rural placemaking, and then was a chief creative officer for a bank and using puppetry to teach need versus want and economic development. So not only that nonprofit and for-profit bank created jobs for me, it was during that time the pandemic happened, and I jumped out of the plane, figuratively speaking, and saying, okay, I am called to be Tina B, and the more side gigs were happening virtually with workshops, keynotes, coaching opportunities to draw heart-centered leaders into this beautiful space and place to stop performing and to start resonating so that their message doesn't just land, it lingers. So I guide folks from disconnection to full-on embodiment so that they can feel their breath, their body, and voice to be fully expressed.
That is so neat. And as a communications coach, you did a very good job of taking us through that story very neatly. I'm so curious about so many different parts of this.
Yeah,
and
I think some of what you're talking about feels like ungraspable for some people. Like, you think about some people are naturally magnetic and naturally great speakers and communicators. And the idea that anyone can sort of tap into that magic and that intuitive is really intriguing. Like, for some people, they might be like, well, I'll never be able to be magical as a communicator, but you're making me rethink that.
You absolutely can. I actually published a book, Discovering Our Magnetic Speaker Within, and worked with Manuscripts Publishing out of Georgetown University and conducted 50 interviews with a wide range of people, from improvisers, storytellers, communication professors, psychologists, business owners, you name it. And one thing in the research and in the experiences, it really comes down to the practice. Because all of us have this juicy yumminess inside of ourselves. It's getting out there. And some people are just more apt to put themselves out there because they get energy. It fuels their heart, their soul to be out on stage. Think Mel Robbins has got to that place, as well as Tony Robbins. They have that magnetism. They get jazzed up. And for me, what I have found is a lot of my clients say, I'm kind of safe over here. And so it's really guiding folks into the safety, the presence. It's a process, it's a practice of getting into their bodies, regulating their nervous systems so that they bring back what they already know to be true. And that's where from birth to 7 years old is that crucial space that something was said or done in that childhood that has said, you're not worthy, you're not enough, you're shushed. And it's healing that in a spiritually playful way that I draw out of them and then give them the mindset, message, and mechanics. Because you don't know what you don't know. You've heard that phrase before.
Yeah.
And so I get into their inner knowing.
So it sounds like you've really developed out a process for this. And I want to talk about why it matters to business owners and entrepreneurs. Well, I mean, this is one of those things I think you're trying to say it matters to everyone, but our audience is business owners and entrepreneurs, so we'll focus on them specifically. Why is being able to be a magic communicator important to someone who might just feel like it is my job to make the bills work, that is, and so they might not be thinking so much about how in which they communicate.
Well, think of it this way. You cannot make money, you cannot have a business if you don't effectively communicate. Because think of it as, so many people struggle and can be convoluted with their business story to where they have a disorganized way of communicating. They tell too much, too little. It doesn't resonate. It's all disjointed. So that's not going to hook potential clients to use their services or products. So storytelling is a big piece. And I teach the 5 beats of story to embed sensory details and emotions to land in those hearts, because story is your persuasive tool that transports towards the head to the heart of your audience and into their pocketbooks, if you will, to pay forward. The other piece is, how do you connect with people? We get into discomfort, and I can speak from experience. When I first was Tina B and showing up to networking events, I struggled because I was trying to be super interesting and I got to land clients and And so when I walked in, this nervous energy was coming forth, and it really hurt my connection with people. And it became this thing that I had to go to a leadership experience with a horse and learn from Dale, the horse, that it's a beingness so that you can then know what to say or do. And then you have this connection and abundance of wealth and health and full on love, right? For the self and the other. And so I call it find the Dale in the room, because for me as an ambivert, business owner.
I'm going to need you to describe what an ambivert is.
Yeah.
Zero clue what that word means.
Okay. All right. You've heard of introvert, extrovert,
yes.
right? Introversion is full on. I totally recharge my batteries and energetic field from alone time, reflection in nature, journaling. And I get into that, right? I get into that space. And the extrovert is I charge by peopling and lots of peopling. And so National Speakers Association, the extroverts were on this high. The introverts were like, I need some downtime. I would say I'm an ambivert where it ebbs and flows like waves, where as a highly sensitive person, I'm an empath. I take on people's energetic fields and can sense if they're nervous, if they're tired, if they're excited. And I really have to protect my bubble, my peace. And so I have to say, okay, what do I need in this moment? And as I work from home virtually, sometimes the heavy of alone time, I got to get out and have at least one coffee to connect face to face. And so I flow with that. So ambivert is somewhere in between.
Got it. Okay.
Where
so
you
now
kind of ebb and flow.
And I stopped your mid-thought process because I didn't know the word. So
I'm glad you did. I'm glad you did. Clarity, yes.
So you were saying before that, I don't even remember.
You were talking about finding the Dale in the room.
Oh, the Dale.
You're an ambivert.
Yeah.
Ambivert. ambivert.
Yeah, ambivert.
Ambivert.
Yeah.
I think I'm an ambivert.
So finding the Dale in the room is really finding that going with an intention into a space when you want to network, to get the story out about your business. And I ground myself and my nervous system and my beingness into, okay, I'm going to find one or two Dales in the room to have a thoughtful conversation and to be interested, not interesting.
Oh, yes.
And it's a flip the script, if you will, on them and really dance in that conversation.
Yeah, that's powerful. That's exactly, we vibe, because that's exactly how I approach networking. Is my job is to find interesting people and learn about them, which then makes me interesting to them.
Yes.
Because people
Right.
are like, wow, I just met this woman who found a lead for me or made a suggestion of what I might try or whatever. And that was always sort of my way of easing into networking, was focusing on others instead of feeling like I needed to hand my business card to everybody.
Yeah. And I think there's an interesting point that we're kind of circling around, and I just want to make sure that lands with everyone, is that when we're talking about being like magic or magnetic communicators, it is not about being a different or specific type of
It's
personality.
not pretending.
It is being authentic. And when you are being authentic, you become more magnetic,
More attractive.
And so I think that sometimes people think that they have to be like someone else. They have to be like a Tony Robbins or a Mel Robbins, and you're not like that, or even an extrovert, and you're maybe not.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
But being people, I guess what I'm trying to say is people can feel and understand your energy before you've said a word. And therefore you need to, we can tell when someone is frantic. We can tell when someone is desperate or a little out of sorts. We can tell when someone is sad or down.
Yeah.
And so being aware, I keep hearing you saying grounding yourself before you're communicating, because we're communicating with so much more than just our words.
Absolutely. What you're hitting on is we diss ourselves. We get into discomfort because of the fear of the future, or discomfort on nostalgia where we're in the heavy of the past. Like, oh, I messed up. The last time I went to a networking situation, I did this and said this, and I didn't land in the ears and hearts of people. So we diss on ourselves, and that lands us into discomfort. And so we disconnect from our bodies, and what we really need to, and then we distract ourselves, right? Like, oh, where do I need to go? And so it's really getting into a presence process. It's a practice of beingness. So tapping into our five senses, where I've worked with my clients, she said, one of them, a financial planner, said, the moment I see the clock get to this point and I put on my pants to go to the networking event, the anxiety escalates. And that's anticipatory reaction, where anxiety starts to build because we're thinking of the future. The worry is setting in, and the car gets closer, and I get more and more and more and more nervous. So the piece is, okay, what are 5 things that you can do for yourself? What can you look at, smell, taste, touch, and feel in your 5 senses to bring you back into the heart of the space and place so that you can communicate with confidence and clarity?
Talk about how you have maybe specific examples or case studies where you've helped a leader overcome their own fear of communicating with their team or with their brand. Like, maybe talk to us a little bit about, I just think about that hard nut to crack, that person who really is struggling with being in front of people and talking about their brand or talking within their team.
Yeah, I had a CEO of a nonprofit, or a for-profit, who was very worried. She vocalized, I'm worried about being boring. And she had this mindset of, well, I don't feel like I have a story to share. I really don't enjoy peopling. I don't like being at meetings. I feel like they're not listening as effectively. And so she also was asked to do a TEDx and asked to do more keynotes. So she's like, not only do I not love doing all these things that are smaller as as opposed to the bigger stages and places. So what we did is the first piece is she was izzing all over herself. So let's look at that mindset. Who is driving the bus? Is it the little 7-year-old who is insecure that had that moment where maybe a teacher, a coach, an adult in their life said something and they felt bad about themselves? So they're going to that place. That's the conditioned self, the pattern behavior. And so it's being aware of, is it fear or faith that is leading you into that mindset? Because thoughts become things. And when we think something, like what is that proclamation? When you say, I'm boring, or I'm scared, or I'm overwhelmed, then you're izzing on yourself and you're casting a spell about yourself. So I really get them into the I am statement. Like, what are 3 I am statements that you can really own? Because if I say I am passionate, I am powerful, and I'm creative, that beingness shows up differently. They dress a certain way, they speak a certain way, they be a certain way. So it's foundationally grounding them in the I am that they are, and I draw that out of them, and then they own into it and get into that guidance and beingness. And the beingness, then we get into the message making. And that's the strategic planning of, okay, a TED Talk versus a meeting versus what have you. What do you say? How do you say it? What is some guided practice and structure to help with your message? And so we worked on that, like with their TED Talk, getting the idea, getting a good hook, a good structure, good guided practice. And then the last piece are the mechanics. What is your voice and body doing when you are delivering the message so it comes out with impact and has that magic and that yumminess? And a lot of it is when you've done the pause and you've really done the preparation, guess what? Your body and your voice are a well-oiled machine. You don't have to think, you just have to show up. And your body and your gestures and your voice will do a beautiful symphony where you are the conductor if you show up in full-on beautiful trust.
It's so interesting you say that, and it's because partly I can see it in myself, in some of my own experiences speaking. I have a fear that I've worked through over the years, but I have a childhood fear that it was created about reading out loud.
I remember you telling me about this.
Yes. So as long as I'm not reading out loud, I'm fantastic on a stage. But if you want to put me in hot sweats, I do. Talk to me about popcorn reading in elementary and middle school. Like
Ellie, read the next paragraph.
Oh my God. It was horrible. It still gives me hives thinking about it. And so you're talking about like this thought of how when you are prepared and when you are in comfort rather than that discomfort, when you can show up as your authentic self. But when you are being confronted with this thing where it's like, I hate reading out loud, I like reading, I love reading, but like I hate reading out loud, that can automatically give you a different version of me on stage. Mm-hmm. And so that's an interesting...
Yeah, maybe you need to write a book and then do audiobook to kind of get yourself over the hump.
Oh, yeah. And I thought probably, but I'm better at it now. I've worked through that, but it's about preparation partially, right?
And it reminds me of...
And practice, preparation, practice, because like with that, I have a visibility issue. I've been doing a 50 by 50 challenge to get over my perfectionism piece, because somehow when a camera goes on me for social media videos, for this and that, I'm like, or I just don't post it. And so I declared at a Women Lead Change conference this past October on the main stage, because the keynoter brought me up, JJ Moses, and said, come up with a goal, say it out loud, proclaim it. And I said, I'm going to do a daily TikTok to get over myself. And I have. I've shown up for myself every day. And guess what? The ease is coming. And I click send and post or whatever. And similar to you, Ellie, isn't it interesting? What was it? What's the thing? It's getting curious and asking the question and then creating a game with ourselves to change that pattern in our heads that say you're not a good reader. You're not meant to perform on video. Like, it's not going to be good enough because I teach this stuff, so I get trippy about it. What if I verbalize a vocal filler or whatever? And guess what? I've actually, from NSA, when that one speaker did the metacognition of, oh, I just messed up, blah, blah, blah. We loved her more when she was so real with us. We are all human beings, not human doers.
I have a similar practice that I learned at a leadership training I went to, talking about practice and preparation. And that is, they encouraged us to think about, like, we're nervous about something. You're nervous as a leader. You're nervous about presenting, or you're nervous about trying something or facing an unhappy client or whatever it might be, is to remember your history. Is like, look back at your history. Have you gotten through difficult things like this before?
Yeah.
Have you been successful at this before? Have you been to that networking event before and survived it? Like, part of it is not just remembering, like you're saying, that is of like, I don't like this, right? But also, actually, I've been successful at it. I've been, or something adjacent to it. And that actually helps me. Some mornings I wake up and I might have anxiety about some leadership activity or something I have to do as a leader of my company. And I just have to say to myself, well, let's look back. Have you been successful in these situations before? I have. Okay, well, then you're probably going to be okay.
I love what you're saying, Maggie, because it's really, emotion is energy in motion, and it's shifting to a celebratory of yes. Instead of leaning into the fear, it's leaning into the celebration energy, because a lot of it is you're either feeling fear, anger, or grief, which are heavy, or boredom, or overwhelm, all of which are in your body. Your body is so much more powerful than your ears. Listen to your body. What is it telling you? How can you nurture yourself into that state of being?
I think that this would actually be really helpful for our listeners, is to talk about like an example of this in leading our companies. So Maggie, you're talking about like you've had to like remind yourself. Let's talk about specifically time that you've been communicating to your team. And I had a question earlier and I've kind of lost it. So I'm trying to, but I would like to tell a little bit more relatable stories, so that we can connect it back for the listener into their daily practice.
I think for me, I have so many examples, but
Yeah.
I think sometimes as a CEO or an owner, we think, well, I have to solve every problem, or I better have an answer. And sometimes I've learned that vulnerability of honesty when I'm in front of my team, that, I know this is going to be a difficult time. Maybe a project has gone sideways, or maybe we've hit a slow patch, or maybe it's overwhelmed. Maybe we're just so busy. Everyone is, pointing blame at each other. And so for me, one of the tricks I use is trying to come up with a catchphrase or something that encapsulates the moment for them that they can take with them. And so I feel this stress and unhappiness about, oh, I have this problem I can't fix. They have to all fix it. It has to be something we all participate in. And so coming up with some kind of little rallying cry or some kind of little meme
I have
or whatever.
so many more questions I want to ask about
So
this.
like right now, for example, we have this thing we're using called Respect the Craft, which is about looking at everything we do as a craft. And as we pass the ball of a project from one hand to the next, is to really think about, have I done a respectful job? And am I passing it with respect? Am I treating this process with respect? Or I'm behind, I'm just going to slap this together and it's going to be your problem next. Or I don't trust you, so I'm going to do something without telling you because I don't trust your work. So I'm going to do a little more than I should and pass the ball. So it's like I find that helpful, is like a phrase or a message that helps people coalesce around an idea.
It's like being at top of intelligence, which is a phrase in improv. Like, how do you show on stage with your partner at top of intelligence? And it sounds like all about framing, Maggie. You're framing it in a way to give you that groundedness so you can think about it in a way that then lends itself to how you communicate. So you're crafting it from a beautiful mental outline, if you will.
Right. Instead of saying, y'all stop making mistakes, y'all stop being lazy, or y'all stop, start communicating with each other. It's very hard to so yeah, coming up with a way of people think about it where it kind of turns it on its head and makes it not like this negative message. It's like an aspirational message.
Yeah. A lot of times I'll say like, that wasn't helpful. Like what meaning, I think there's backstory needed for this, which is like my dad is a coach and he will often give feedback that is not helpful. Like, and I hear myself even with the kids or other places where it's like, that wasn't really that helpful.
Is that
like
helpful or hurtful?
Yeah. And so it's not even necessarily hurtful. It's just like, hit the ball in the court. That's not helpful. Obviously, they were attempting to hit the ball in the court. So I like how you're trying to think about what you're phrasing.
The mindset.
Yeah, and making sure that the words that you're using are actually directionally helpful.
Yeah.
Does that versus just like, don't be lazy.
Right.
It's like, well,
Do
clearly
better.
they weren't trying to
Do better.
Yeah, do better. It's like, okay, helpful information. And that kind of, Tina, I mean, you're the expert on this type of communication. It seems like it is so much more than just communication. It's really understanding oneself and one's triggers so that you can show up authentically. So you gave us a little bit about your story and how you got there, but I would really like to know, a time where you struggled in communication and how that played out and how you've learned from that or developed what you do now because of it, like a story of struggle and overcoming.
Yeah, I think all of us have that. And I think what has been difficult for me is knowing that when you label yourself as an intuitive communication coach, or even before that, it was chief communicator, right? I've evolved my business in the last 6 years to land in that way. And I'm thinking early on in my business, I was in this purgatory professionally of transitioning out of my position at the bank and going into a full-on launch into Tina B, chief communicator. And I would go to these quad meets that were a thing during the pandemic where you would meet up with 3 different people from all over the world for 30 minutes and introduce yourself. And you were given like 2 minutes to introduce yourself, give a background of your business, and then you could do a follow-up call. And there would usually be a little bit of time to ask questions and connect with each other. Well, I can't help but think of a time when in my head was all jumbled, a bit confused of how do I talk about this because I'm still in the transition phase. And so I remember introducing myself, my passion for, at the time I lived on a farm, for storytelling and for communication and this and that. And then a gentleman, the next guy, without missing a beat, said, wow, you obviously don't know who you are, and you could use my coaching because this is what I do. And it was very telling. It was a mirror, if you will, of, oh, wow, it hurt my feelings. It kind of shocked the other two. It was very uncomfortable for a minute. But then I got off that call and said, thank you, because I didn't have clarity on how to talk about where I am, where I'm going, because I was trying to do well, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And I hadn't grounded myself with clarity of, oh, I could say currently I'm this and I'm transitioning into this. And that would have helped, I think, land in the listening of the other. And so I've had those moments as a business owner where if you're launching something, and I even remember launching, and I had a business coach tell me, you need to do a visibility challenge. And here I am 5+ years later doing it again. And it's the constant just showing up for yourself. That's what it is, because procrastination is a choice. And when you get in front of people, whether it's virtually, in person, video, etc., each one is a practice. And then it's not criticizing yourself afterwards. Everything is feedback. Feedback is the other's experience of you. It's not who you are. It's not your worth. It's not your level of enoughness. And I was always looking at, well, give me the compliments, give me the insight that I was awesome. And sometimes I didn't get that. And then I was like, well, then I must be bad. And I would shame the heck out of myself. And so I've been kind of going back into Brene Brown's Church of Books, Gift of Imperfection, Rising Strong, all these things of how do I get really into a space and place within my heart to be guided clearly with confidence. And it's that inner beingness.
Mm-hmm. And I think one thing that is a question that keeps popping up in my head, or thing that I feel like that is being communicated, and I want to specifically hone in on because I think it's a problem for business owners, is it sounds like you really need to have clarity to communicate clearly. That sounds obvious, right? But I think as business owners, we're often needing to communicate something before we even ourselves have full clarity. And so do you feel like clarity is required for intuitive communication, or do you feel like there is an ability to meet in the middle before you maybe don't have clarity? Because we can't always be, I want to always be authentic, but I can't always be 100% transparent about everything that's going on all the time.
Clear, yeah.
And so, and sometimes I'm working towards my own clarity on what to do next, but there is this pressure to make everyone else feel better. Does that make sense? And so these are like real issues that business owners have.
Yeah, like when you are in a moment of lacking clarity, or maybe you put on your heels in some way, or things are difficult, right? And you show up for things and people are like, well, how are you? I'm good. How are you? And inside you're screaming. And how do you show up in a way that's like, well, I'm going through a tough time right now, but I think it's going to be okay. Or, it is a funny, like, you don't want to reveal too much.
Yeah, I actually struggle with this because I'm ultra transparent and then can accidentally cause more anxiety than I actually feel in someone else. Does that? And so is clarity a requirement for clear communication? Which sounds so silly. That's what a phrase right there.
Well, I think at the core, it's context of the communicative event leads to content. So it's asking yourself prior to going into the communication experiences, what is this experience? What does the audience expect from me? Or, in terms of if I'm walking in to give a eulogy at a funeral versus a TED Talk versus leading a team meeting versus going into a networking event, all have very different communication experiences. All have different, if contexts, right? Time of day, rules of social couth, if you will. And so I ask myself, okay, where am I emotionally? Where am I mentally, physically, whatever? Because in the last year, I've had a whirlwind of hardships personally. Do people want to hear all of that? Like you were saying, Maggie, like it's okay, like getting okay with not being okay, I think foundationally. But what I think you need to be clear on is the intention. So if let's say you're in a situation where you're looking for a new job, but it's not public, well, do you share all of that? I think it's really all comes down to intention. And so knowing what you want in the communication. So if you're going to network and networking event, I think walking in with some awareness of where am I now, presently? Where's my mind? Where's my body? Okay, breathe, pause, breathe, okay, and get into the experience. Have a clarity of what the intention is, not a script of what you're going to say necessarily, but how you want to relate with other people and where you are personally and professionally. I think that helps a lot because similar to you, Ellie, I mean, when I was at NSA, I was in an emotional whirlwind personally. And what I noticed, it's like Greg Bear talks about in Real Love, is there's these getting and protecting behaviors. What was I doing sometimes with a couple people? I noticed, oh my gosh, I'm trying to get sympathy and their love, and that's imitation. When you're sharing too much, the oversharer, right? Because I had so much personal stuff happening. So it's stepping back and saying, okay, how can I love on myself, be grounded in myself, be at peace with myself to just show up and orchestrate a present process with this person or people? Because ultimately, it's the best phrase in communication research is it depends. Because whether you walk into a very formal decorum of a big keynote with 1,000 people to if you're one-on-one with a potential client and everything in between, it depends. Ultimately, you got to connect with yourself first to co-create messages with other people. Don't sell, tell, and yell all over them and yourself.
Interesting.
It is good. It's good to think about that. Like, what's the context I'm walking into?
You don't necessarily have to have clarity of everything, but you need to have clarity about what you're about to say.
Well, yeah. I was just this week, I was at a doctor's appointment, and I was working with the nurse to do my annual. So she was taking my blood pressure and doing all these tasks related to gathering data for the doctor's visit later. And she was telling me all about her terrible morning, and her last 2 days have been really personally difficult for her in a way that was kind of funny. Like, I had these 2 really difficult days, and I was just like, this isn't the context. I'm here to be taken care of, actually.
Yeah.
I don't want to take care of you right now. I don't want to ask questions about, oh, I'm so sorry. Are you okay? Like, it literally was this disconnect where I was like, girl, no, not right now.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's hard because you want to be empathetic, but there are times when we're out of the social construct, or like, what is someone here for?
I'm not your audience for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's what your coworkers are for.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's just it's a hard balance, and it takes a lot of like self-observation, but also not getting I feel like sometimes we can get too self-observation-y and versus like just being in the lived moment.
Yeah.
But most people fall on one end of that spectrum or another, you know? And so it's like the people that need to do some more self-observation often don't. And then you've got people who live in their head and you're like, come on, get out into the world.
Yeah, just experience it.
Yeah.
Well, it's really helpful to me to think about that. Like, as I approach a moment, what's my context? What's my audience?
Yeah.
What do I reveal?
How do I
be authentic, whatever that is.
Ground myself in that.
Yeah, ground myself in my realness. And
I don't know is a real answer. Yeah.
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 Yeah, I'm not sure.
So we're coming up on kind of the time, and I want to make sure that we have the chance to talk a little bit about your business, your book, what you've got going on, and where you are in the life cycle of your business. I mean, you started this in the middle of a pandemic. We're headed into 2026. What is next for Tina B as a business, and how can our audience support you?
That's a great question. It's evolved. I really see it as a trifecta. I mean, I've been doing 30 years in this field of research, communication, best practices, from the collegiate level of research and teaching to being a communication strategist for a nonprofit and a bank. And so I'm realizing that my skill with spirituality, because we are souls having a human experience in my belief system, and then playfulness, right? It doesn't have to be painful to communicate effectively. So I do a lot of fun-filled freestyle rapping in my keynotes and team building workshops to show the yes and leadership, how can we be more bold? Can we listen hard? Can we tap into the moment and be fully present with ourselves and each other? And as the moment occurs, to teaching storytelling, temperament, of how we work and lead people and communicate with people is a core value piece to be a magnetic communicator. So I do keynotes for organizations. I do team building, virtual workshops and in person, as well as 3, 6 month, and 1 year individual and team intuitive communication programs that really are customized with what is your vision? What is it you want? Is it, I want to launch my book keynote, TED Talk, etc., to I just want to get less goofy facilitating a meeting. I want to be more engaging and make that impact. So those are my trifectas, is the keynotes, the team building workshops, and the coaching programs. Would love to connect to support and guide you on that vision into your beautiful magnetism. I also have my book. It's available on Amazon. And that's an entry point where it has tips, tools, and reflection questions to guide you into the mindset, the message, and the mechanics to magnetism.
Tell us the name of the book for the audio-only listeners.
Sure. It's called Discovering Our Magnetic Speaker Within by Tina Bakehouse. And I go by Tina B. And you can reach out to me on LinkedIn, Tina B. Bakehouse, as well as I have a website. It's tinabakehouse.com, and it's evolving to tinab.com. So talk about shifting brands as I'm going into year 6 of my business.
That's awesome. Tina, thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you for showing us your authentic self and talking to our business owners and leaders about effective communication. We appreciate you so much.
Yes, great job. Thank you, Tina B.
Love you both. Mwah.